On today's episode of the DuckZone503 Podcast, I'm joined by a super special guest today, and we're going to preview and predict this Week 5 matchup of number 9 Oregon at Stanford. We will also be giving our 3 keys to the game and finally our final score prediction. I'm your host, Dominiqk Peterson. This is the DuckZone503 Podcast. We talk all things Oregon football. Let's get into it, people.
Welcome to the DuckZone503 Podcast. Talking all things Oregon football. With your host, Dominiqk Peterson. Let's go.
Welcome into today's edition of the DuckZone503 Podcast. The date is Wednesday, September 27th, 2023, and I am happy to be with you. I'm joined by the one and only Ben Parker, publisher for Rivals Cardinal SportsReport.com. And we are here to preview and predict Ducks versus Cardinals. How are we feeling today, Ben?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Oh, man, I'm doing absolutely great. It's going to be a great matchup between the Oregon Ducks and the Stanford Cardinal. We all know, Stanford's kind of on a down year this year, but Oregon coming in top 10, that doesn't mean anything. If you're a true Oregon fan, we all know this is a scary matchup for the Ducks going on to play Stanford, although we got lots to talk about. Before we start, I always like to start out with our guests. Where can we find your work before we get out there? What all do you do? Where can we find your work at?
Yeah, so you can just find my work at cardinalsportsreport.com. That's where my stuff is. If it's easier to remember, you can just type in stanford.rivals.com, same site, and that's where all my stuff is in the Cardinals. I'll be posting a bunch of stuff in advance of the game, so definitely check that out.
Bam, there you guys go. Make sure you guys go check him out. Make sure you subscribe to the DuckZone503 Podcast as well. I'm giving you 2 podcasts a week, Monday and Wednesday, full game day experience, vlogs at all the home games. I'll be there at that Washington game as well. That looks to be a much anticipated matchup. I was there, guys, for that top 20 matchup this last weekend. Colorado at Oregon, absolutely electric atmosphere in Autzen Stadium, 6th largest crowd in Oregon football history. It was wild. If you haven't seen that, make sure to go check it out and all the other videos we have. We talk Pac-12 ball as well, giving you recruit interviews and more. We're sitting there at 870 subscribers on YouTube. The goal is 1,000. I've been spouting that since the season started. Get us there, people. Tell your friends, your family, your pets. I don't care. Just tell everyone around you to go hit that subscribe button. All right, guys, that Colorado game was fun, but it's time to focus on Stanford now. It's Stanford week. Hashtag chop the tree, as Oregon fans like to say, against the Stanford fans. We got the away team, number 9 Oregon, 4-0, 1-0 in conference play, coming off a dominant 42-6 win over Colorado. Home team Stanford sitting there at 1-3, 0-2 in conference play so far. Lost a very close game to Arizona, 21-20, the final last week for them. Game's going to be played in Stanford Stadium, 3:30 Pacific time kickoff on the Pac-12 network. Stanford leads the all-time series versus the Ducks. Against Oregon, they are 50-35-1, but the Ducks are 3-1 in the last 4 meetings. Oregon and Stanford last met on October 1st, 2022, when the Ducks won 45-27 in Eugene. Stanford is 30-16-1 at home against Oregon and won its last home contest against the Ducks. Everybody remembers that 31-24 overtime battle in 2021, where Stanford upset the Ducks. Head coach Troy Taylor enters his first season at Stanford. The Cardinals are entering that post-David Shaw era now, and just like any coaching turnover that happens at any school, there's going to be some growing pains. Troy Taylor has some head coach experience. From 2019 to 2022, he was the head coach at Sacramento State. He was very successful there. He was a 2-time Big Sky Coach of the Year in 2019 and 2021. He ended with a 30-8 overall record when it was all said and done there. So this guy is obviously a very proven, successful head coach to a certain degree. Let's start there by talking about Troy Taylor from your perspective. What are some things you like about him? What do you think he brings to this Stanford program?
The number one thing that Troy Taylor has brought is just a fresh energy and kind of rejuvenation, right? This program really kind of struggled under David Shaw towards the end, and they really needed to have some fresh blood on that could get him a fresh perspective. So he just brought a lot of energy and enthusiasm and kind of reignited some hope in the program after a few down seasons.
Yeah, 100%. David Shaw, he led that Stanford program to a 96-54 record in his 11 years there. A lot of that had to do with his development and culture from those previous coaching staff. It's definitely a different age of college football. How do you think Troy Taylor and this staff get Stanford back on track recruiting wise?
Yeah, I think it all starts with kind of selling their vision for the program, right? Selling that hope, selling that belief that this is a program that can turn things around, and also just sell the academics side as well, right? And kind of those two things really sell, hey, the academics of a Stanford degree, along with the brand of football they want to play. I think those two things are the biggest things that they can do.
100%. Yeah, that academics thing, there's nothing better than a Stanford degree. Let me tell you, that is nice. It wasn't that long ago also when Stanford was competing every year with the likes of Oregon for Pac-12 championships and that North Division crown. Close your ears, Duck fans, but we all remember 2012, 2013, and most recently 2021. We just talked about when Stanford upset Oregon. It has been many, many, many times that this Cardinal team has got the best of the Ducks. Now, those 2012 and 2013 teams were pretty damn good. They both won 11 and 12 games respectively. But that 2021 matchup is more of the same vibe as this one if you look ahead. Oregon is coming off a huge emotional win over Colorado. Rewind back to 2021 when Oregon was coming off a big-time win at Ohio State a couple weeks ago. Then they went on to drop that Stanford game 31-21 and 31-24 in overtime. They lost to a Stanford team, guys, that only won 3 games total last year. Matter of fact, when they beat the Ducks, that was their 3rd win that season. Didn't go on to beat anybody else the rest of the way. So that, in my mind, is still one of the worst losses and most confusing losses I've seen as a Duck fan. And this matchup right here is the same deal. Oregon is coming in, riding high. Not much is expected from Stanford. And this has all the makings for Stanford to play devil's advocate and steal a win for Oregon. So what's kind of the vibe around the Stanford program right now? I understand it's a down year, but this game is against Oregon. They're top 10 in the country right now. Do you think fans will show up and pack the house? What's kind of the vibe around the Stanford program?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the one difference between kind of this year's program and I think last time when they faced Oregon was, just the energy around Troy Taylor. And so I think everyone knows that it's a rebuild. They're starting from the ground up. They're not expected to do much this year. But I think that just knowing that it's a new head coach and he's starting his own program from the ground up, building his own culture, I think that in and of itself creates a lot of excitement, win or lose. And then also too, I mean, Oregon is such a, big football brand as you obviously know. So I think a lot of people just are going to be fired up to face the Ducks, and I do think they're going to get a good turnout. They were one of the players, Gaithan Bernadelle, linebacker, was out promoting a shirt he had designed that they're going to get the first 6,000 fans to. So there's definitely a lot of buzz and excitement, and I think that even though they know that they're not expected to win this or keep it close, that there's still a lot of excitement going in. So it's a big deal.
100%. That's good to hear. I like to hear that there's excitement. There's some merch coming into this game. That's always good to hear because, as a Duck fan, especially Duck fans traveling to the game, you want to see that place packed out. You want to feel the energy. And, Stanford, as recent couple amount of years, it's been a rebuild. It's been tough to pack that place. So to hear that there's a little bit of, some talk going around the town, even though it's rebuild year, Oregon is a big top 10 team right now, a big brand. I'm sure that place will be rocking. We just touched on how dominant this Stanford program was going back just a few years ago. This is a program that produced the likes of Toby Gerhart, Christian McCaffrey, Stephon Taylor, Andrew Luck, Ty Montgomery. I can go on and on. Stanford won a total of 9 games in 2018, then kind of dropped off in 2019 to just winning 4 and never seemed to recover since. What do you think was the cause of that quick and drastic downfall that we've seen the last few seasons?
Yeah, I think it really kind of had to deal with, David Shaw's lack of willingness to make the necessary changes he needed to make with the program. Things just kind of got stale, and sometimes you got to change things for the sake of changing things, right? And he wasn't willing to really mix things up, play calling wise, or give off those duties. And I think it's one of those where complacency got the better of them, and they were unwilling to kind of make those necessary changes. And because David Shaw is such a beloved coach there, I think the administration was willing to give him every benefit of the doubt to maybe make those changes. And they kind of tried to do that last year with this slow mesh offense, but it just didn't really work. So I just think it came down to just kind of their lack of willingness to kind of make necessary changes in the program. And then also too, I mean, there were also other things that were a bit out of their control. The transfer portal started to heat up more, and they were a bit behind the curve there. They're getting caught up now. So you kind of combine those two things, and you get the drop off that they had.
Okay, I see. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was very interesting for me because, back, I'm kind of in the younger crowd, and I even it was my middle school years where Andrew Luck in Oregon was really good, and Stanford was just kind of knocking them off. And it was just weird before I started really paying attention to the sport and what's going on behind the scenes. For me to see Stanford just drop off like that all of a sudden, it was really weird on the outside looking in. But I see what Troy Taylor's bringing. I see the energy, and I see in the 2024 recruiting class, you guys got some key notable recruits. So I see the future for Stanford. I forgot to ask, what conference aren't you guys going to a different conference here soon?
Yeah, it's the ACC. So both Stanford and Cal are going to the ACC, Atlantic Coast Conference. So your two Pac-12 schools that are closest to the Pacific Ocean are going to the ACC. So it's kind of weird, but no.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird time to be alive in the world of college football, 100%. But that's good to hear. They're not left out. They got kind of their financial future secured there, so that's great. And the Stanford football program's in good hands with Troy Taylor. It sounds like Stanford started out their season on a high note by beating Hawaii 37-24 on the road. Pretty impressive victory for them, but they're now on a 3-game losing streak. They lost to USC 56-10. Lost to Sacramento State. That looks to be Troy Taylor's former team, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Yeah,
yep, correct.
30-23 lost there. Lost 21-20, heartbreaker to Arizona. So I know that's kind of, some negative things to talk about. Let's kind of stick with the positive things here. Even though it's been a rough stretch, what are some positive things that the Stanford football team has done in their first 4 games that we can talk about?
Yeah, I would say one of the first things they've done well is they have done, I believe this is one of my keys to the game too. They've done a good job at times of hitting the home run. So the guy Minor against Sac State had like a 51-yard touchdown reception. Tiger Bachmeier almost had a 30-plus yard touch, just dropped it against Arizona. But, Ben Urosik has had some nice receptions for long gains, Moody Rubin. So Bryce Farrell, I think, had a nice one as well. So then they've done a good job of like having certain like kind of big yardage plays. Cedric Irvin against Arizona, the freshman running back, had a really nice kind of stiff arm for like a 46-yard run. So they've done a good job of like having certain individual plays where they can gain like 40-plus yards. And then the defense also did look better against Arizona. But I would say they've done a good job of having certain kind of home run type of plays. It's just a function of like capitalizing on those when they do come. So that's one thing they've done really well at, I think.
Okay, yeah, sounds like there's some explosiveness to this offense coming in this year. It sounds good. What's kind of like the overall health of the Stanford football team right now? Any key injuries that Oregon fans should know about?
Yeah, so head coach Troy Taylor was a bit kind of guarded with injuries, but the 4 that are to keep an eye on is senior wide receiver John Humphreys. We'll see what his status is. He's been out. I don't think he's trying to think. I think he played against Hawaii, but he hasn't played since then. Freshman offensive guard who's a starter, Simeon Powell. He's out. We'll see if he's back. He missed the last game. Safety Scotty Edwards and also safety Jimmy Wyrick are 2 guys to look for as well. Wyrick hasn't yet played this year, I don't think. And I know that Edwards was banged up last game. So those are the 4 names to keep an eye
on. 100%. A little banged up around this time. That happens. For Oregon, we got some guys banged up. Notable guys out right now. We lost last week. Noah Whittington, running back for Oregon. Looked like a normal tackle going down on his left lower leg. He was not able to put any weight on that leg. After the third quarter, he got injured in that Colorado game. And after the game, Dan Lanning himself, as well as Troy, very guarded with injuries, giving out information. And Noah Whittington, he just, he did speak about it a little bit. He said he will be out for a while and to send prayers. Now, that's all he said. He said he is healthy and he's okay. So it's a little confusing quote to read into, but overall, it sounds like Noah is not going to be playing in this game. Nishad Struther is an offensive guard that has yet to play for Oregon. He's an Eastern Carolina transfer, and he was expected in camp to be, one of the guys starting on this offensive line. Well, he gets injured in a boot, and it's been reported that he's been practicing and having contact drills as well. So we'll be on the lookout for that. If he plays in this game or not, I don't expect him to start in this game or nothing, but if he could start making his way in the offensive line, that'd be something to watch for Duck fans. And then last but not least, Justin Jacobs, a linebacker, still has yet to play a snap for the Ducks. He's an Iowa transfer that looks to be a pretty big linebacker in the inside for the Ducks, and can't wait to get him back. All right, let's talk about this Stanford offense. Who are some players to watch out for? Who are some key players on this Stanford offense?
Yeah, so both quarterbacks, obviously, they got they have a two quarterback situation going on, Justin Lamson and Ashton Daniels. Troy is hoping that someone's going to emerge out of that group, but right now nobody has. So he's just kind of trading. Ashton has been known as more of like a running type guy, and Lamson has been known as more of like a kind of all around guy. But the funny thing is, against Arizona, at least, there was more running from Lamson and more throwing from Daniels. So it's perhaps that people have that's a misconception. But yeah, both quarterbacks. Tight end Benjamin Urasic, he got pictured in there. He's really key to what they do. And then Oregon native Casey Filkins, number 2, is another one to keep an eye on. But really, I think on top of that, I mean, just it's kind of like you never know who's going to show up for this team in terms of who's going to get the snaps. Troy Taylor's rotating guys around. So, last week, Cedric Irvin, freshman running back, got almost all the touches at running back. EJ Smith and Casey Filkins, I think combined for 1 touch, I think. I mean, it was like they hardly got the ball. So I think there's a lot of different faces and guys that could get the rock and make plays for him. Freshman Tiger Bachmeier, receiver. Sophomore receiver Moody Rubin. Sophomore tight end Sam Rush. Just a bunch of guys. So, I think what's going to be interesting to see is kind of what rotation Troy Taylor does with him. The guy's even rotating punters. He's had Connor Westman punt a couple of times, and he had freshman Aiden Flintoff. So, I mean, I think that the people you have on the picture there, quarterback Ashton Daniels, running back Casey Filkins, and tight end Benjamin Urasic are as good of people to put on there as anybody. But it's just important to know that we could see new guys coming in that, maybe we didn't even see before. So, Troy Taylor is definitely experimenting a lot with his offense, and it's keeping all of us kind of guessing about who's going to play, who's going to do what. So it's going to be interesting to see.
100%. Sounds like a good experiment project going on. That's always fun to see. That's always fun because it's like a jack in a box. You don't know what's going to come out of the hat, right? That's what's great. So Stanford quarterback Ashton Daniels, he looks to take the reins from Tanner McKee, but kind of looks like he struggled so far. While looking through his stats through 4 games, Daniels has thrown 534 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and is completing only 59% of his passes. While Oregon is coming in as the country's 11th best total defense and 9th best defense against the pass through 4 games, what are some things you think this Stanford offense needs to do for Ashton Daniels and the other quarterback to be successful against this pesky Ducks defense?
Yeah, so the first thing is I mentioned is one of my overall keys is they got to take some shots, right? Wide receiver Elikai Minor has had a home run touchdown. Moody Rubin has had explosive receptions. Tiger Bachmeier had a couple, almost had a touchdown, dropped it. Benjamin Urasic is capable. So I think Stanford's just got to take some shots. And Ashton Daniels has got a really good arm. And there's some throws I've seen him make both in games and in practice where it's like, dang, this dude, he can put the sauce on it, and with some accuracy. So I think they got to take some home run shots. And then also on top of that, take care of the ball. At times Daniels or Lamson will tend to force things and make throws that they probably shouldn't be making. So also just kind of decision-making with the ball. So kind of those 2 things, take your shots, go get vertical, and then also take care of the ball. And then also on top of that, try to make something happen with the running game, whether it be Cedric Irvin, Casey Filkins, or EJ Smith. So kind of those 3 things I think is what's going to be key for the offense.
Okay, yeah, 100%. During the Jim Harbaugh era and David Shaw era, we've seen the Stanford offense really rely on those big physical offensive lines and have excellent running backs come through their program. Their identity was pretty much control the clock and run the football effectively. What's kind of this Stanford team under Troy Taylor's offensive identity? What are the Ducks going to see?
Yeah, I think there's more of an emphasis on vertical passing, I think, and making those explosive plays. And then also, too, I do think that Taylor wants to build up the offensive line, obviously, like every coach does. But the offensive line right now is a weak spot. So they're just not able to rely on those offensive linemen as much as they would like to. So I think just a lot of vertical passing, and then also kind of wheel routes and sweeps, and just opportunities to get their kind of top playmakers in open space. That's really the key, because they do got some fast guys that can move, and if they get an open space, they're capable of big things. So it's trying to, I think, kind of trying to mask the deficiencies of the offensive line as much as possible, if that if that makes sense.
100%. I see. Yeah, play to your strengths. I get it. Are there any matchups that you see against the Ducks that you think Stanford could exploit? Any certain position groups that you think the Cardinal have an edge at anywhere on the field offensively?
Yeah, that's kind of tough to say. I would just say probably the one thing that I don't know what kind of speed Oregon's got on defense. They usually are a very fast defense themselves. But just Stanford's got some guys that can move. Ben Urosic is fast. Casey Filkins is fast. EJ Smith is fast. Bryce Farrell can move. He's fast. So I just think Elik Minor is fast. I really just think that verticality and really kind of testing Oregon's secondary, I think, is really going to be the one advantage they might have, just because they do have some guys that can move. But I know Oregon's got guys that can move too. So really kind of a track meet out there. And if Stanford can win some track meet races, that's probably the one area where they might be able to find something.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be fun. Oregon's defense has steadily improved this year. I would say the speed has gotten better. But overall, it's great. Duck fans are loving what the defense has been doing so far. And you know what else I love? I love watching sports and making money. I'm in love with Mojo Fantasy. It's a crazy new app that turns sportsbook odds and selections into fantasy contests. Here's how it works, guys. There are thousands of NFL and MLB player props. You build a portfolio, and the better your portfolio performs, the more cash you win. Pick as many props as you want and try to beat the crowd. It's a whole new way to play fantasy. The props act like stocks, so you can buy and sell live all game long. It's the only fantasy app that lets you make moves after the game starts, so you're not stuck with bad picks. You can cash in on a hot start or just hang on and let them ride. Cash contests are based on real sportsbook odds. Get the same live player prop selections, odds, and cash outs as Mojo's New Jersey sportsbooks. You can trade sports just like stocks. You control the action, ride picks, cash out, or enter new positions instantly. And there's no house advantage, guys. Beat the crowd by building the biggest portfolio to climb the leaderboard and win cash prizes. That's it. Make picks, make moves, make money. Download now on the Apple App Store and use my code DuckZone for a 100% deposit match up to $100 for your first time deposit. Link in the description for more. Okay, guys, let's talk about this Stanford defense. It really hasn't been pretty. Okay, they're allowing teams to score 32 points per game, averaging 424 yards per game. Opponent third down conversion rate is 47%. They can't get off the field. Opponent red zone scoring is at 90%. Speaking about those great Stanford teams that, they had those great offensive players. Well, they had some pretty damn good defenses as well. You don't upset those 2012 and 2013 Marcus Mariota, Chip Kelly squads without a good defense. Not only this season, but it's been a struggle the last few seasons defensively for Stanford. What are the main areas of this defense that must get improved for them to become competitive at the end of for football again?
Yeah, number one is just getting tougher, meatier up front. The defensive line's got to be better. That's something that really needs to improve. And I think they're getting better there. And there was a couple years back, I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of days ago about this. He was like, "Oh yeah, like we went to a Stanford game and we were all excited, and it was against Utah. And then it was like they got blown out." And I was like, "Yeah, that was the game where like Tavion Thomas just literally like ran up the middle. You knew what was coming, and Stanford couldn't stop him. He just ran like 12 yards a carry, I think, something crazy like that." So they got to get stronger up front. That's number one, defensive line. And then number two, they just got to get more physical. There was just times where like there was a lot of arm tackling and not enough kind of like actual like full body gang tackling aggression. So that's something that needs to change. And that's something that's been an emphasis of defensive coordinator Bobby April so far, is just bringing that physicality back, getting tougher, getting meatier up front, and just playing more aggressive and being more aggressive in the pass rush, things like that. So, honestly, every area of defense they could get back. You go on and on. It's sort of like, where do they? Well, every area they can improve on. But I would just say getting tougher up front, being better against the run, and being more physical is probably where they have to start, as it is with every defense.
Hey, I feel you there, man. As a Duck fan, last year watching this Oregon defense, it was like, where would we start? The defense, our offense could score last year, but our defense was, got exposed a couple times. But this year, kind of like Stanford's defense, it's steadily making improvements and looking a little bit better. So that's good. Who are some key players to look for on this Cardinal defense? Who are some leaders on that end for the Cardinal?
Yeah, once again, I think you did a great job with your picture selections. Up the top, 33, Alakai Gilman. He's a real key to what they do in the secondary as a safety. He's a good ball hawk, capable of getting interceptions. Had a nice interception last year at Cal in the big game in Berkeley. In the middle, number 8, Tristan Sinclair, really nice linebacker, very physical. Definitely kind of one of the hearts and souls of the defense. And then number 23, David Bailey, definitely the most talented defensive player they got, outside linebacker, really an elite level pass rusher. He's a little bit banged up, so we'll see how healthy he is coming into this game. But when he's in peak form and he's got his motor going, he's a real kind of program changing type of defensive talent. So I think those 3 are definitely at the top. I also mentioned Gaithan Bernadette earlier, inside linebacker. He plays very physical. He was the guy that was out there giving the shirts on campus today. So he's another one. I'm trying to think who else. And then, a couple of the guys that are dinged up, we'll see if they're back or not. But, safeties, Jimmy Wyrick and Scotty Edwards are both really key as well for him. So, but yeah, I think the 3 guys you selected, I guess one other guy I should mention is redshirt freshman cornerback Colin Wright. The staff has been raving about this kid from beginning of fall camp. And I got to tell you, he's backed up the hype. He almost had a pick 6 against Sacramento State. The knee was down, so it wasn't a touchdown. But he's been doing a great job of ball hawking, and he's a sneaky good tackler as well. He knows how to put the wood on guys and finish his tackle. So cornerback Colin Wright, along with David Bailey, is probably the most talented guy on the defense. So probably kind of those guys are the ones that jump out.
Okay, yeah, we talked about, the defense, the offense. Which side of the ball would you say Stanford kind of hangs their hat on? Do you think the offense is probably the strong suit of this team, or do you think the defense is probably the strong suit of the Stanford team?
I think in terms of where they're hoping to get more out of this year, I would say probably the offense. If they can kind of get the quarterback situation kind of figured out, just because there's so many explosive guys on the offense. And also, too, just the last couple seasons, the offense has been better than the defense. The offense at times has shown an ability to put up points, but it's been the defense's inability to get stopped. It's really kind of done them in. So I definitely think that if they're going to have any chance of beating Oregon on Saturday, it's going to be because the offense kind of comes to life and catches fire. And then the defense is getting just enough stops to win. That said, the defense has made strides and has made some improvements. And their pass rush ability is quite good. So, or can be quite good. So it's kind of both, but I think certainly, head coach Troy Taylor is known to be kind of an offensive guru. And I think he has more pieces to work with offensively than defensive coordinator Bobby April has to work with on defense, if that makes any sense. So I think the offense is where they're kind of hanging their hat on, but they're also kind of hoping the defense can just kind of get there and improve. So.
Gotcha, 100%. Great breakdown. Stanford's given up 489 yards on the ground so far this year. That's 122.3 yards per contest. They've given up 8 touchdowns via the rush, and they've also allowed 8 touchdowns through the air. They give up 307.8 yards per outing, which puts them in 126 in all of Division I. On the other side, you have this Oregon offense, which is just full of weapons, led by Bo Nix. You pair that with Troy Franklin, Trayshawn Holden, Gary Bryant Jr., Tez Johnson at wide receiver. Then you got running backs, Bucky Irving, Jordan James coming at you. It can make for a long night. What are some things you think Stanford defensive coordinator Bobby April needs to do to try to slow down this hot Oregon offense?
Number one, it starts with containing Bo Nix. They got to do as good a job as they can to keep him in his lane. Don't allow him to get outside. Outside contain is going to be key. And then also blitzing as well. So they've shown an ability to blitz from different positions, from the safety position, from the outside. So I think kind of a combination of containing Bo Nix as much as that's possible for them, and then also just kind of blitzing from different angles, different areas. I think those are the two things they most need to do. And if they do those two things, then maybe they can get a pick, maybe they can get a turnover or something like that. But that's kind of where it's going to have to start, is like being strategic and thoughtful in how they blitz, and then just making sure guys are doing their assignments to make sure Bo Nix doesn't get outside and make runs down the sideline.
100%. Yeah. Where's kind of the strength for the Stanford defense? Where would you say is front seven, corners, linebackers, safeties? What area of the defense does the Stanford defense hang their hat on?
Definitely the pass rush. So I would say the outside linebackers, that's definitely the strongest unit. Lance Kennelly, David Bailey, RJ Cooper, Tavon Taviti. I mean, they got some guys that can really like get after the quarterback at the outside linebacker position. So I would say it definitely starts there. And then, they do have, as starters, their corners are actually like pretty solid. I mentioned Colin Wright. He's been playing fantastic. And then opposite of him is Zara Manley, who took a year off, but is back now with the team. So probably those two areas, I would say, outside linebacker and then also the corners are the two spots where they've been kind of most successful defensively.
Awesome. Love the breakdown. I'm here with my man, Ben Parker. We're here previewing and predicting the Oregon-Stanford matchup, Week 5. Looks to be a fun one, 3:30 Pacific kickoff time. Guys, if you're enjoying this content here, we preview Pac-12 games, we preview Oregon football. This is an Oregon-based podcast, but I'm also talking West Coast football as well. When we join the Big Ten, I'll be getting into that when we join. But if you guys enjoy content just like this, you want to support the show, here's your way to do it right here. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Dominiqk Peterson, host of the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. Very excited to announce we just launched our very first merch store. Men's and women's t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, stickers, phone cases, mugs, and cups are all sold at DuckZone503.creator-spring.com. If you want to go grab one of those today, that's DuckZone503.creator-spring.com. Store link will be in the description below as well. All right, Kevin, it's time. What are your 3 keys to the game for Stanford to get this huge upset on the Ducks at home, like they did in 2021? What does Stanford got to do? We've been here before. What do they got to do? Oh, sorry. Forgot to unmute you, Ben. Sorry about that.
No, I'm kind of going in reverse order, but number 1, they gotta take some shots, home run hit. That's number 3, but they got a home run hit. They got to take some chances. They got some guys that can hit the home run. So throw it deep, Ashton Daniels, let it fly. Maybe Tiger Bachmeier comes down with that touchdown this time, for example. Number 2, contain Bo Nix. Really simple key, but like really hard to do. So you got to contain that guy as much as possible. If he gets out and has a big day, it's lights out. And then number 1, I guess in my reverse order 3, good special teams play. They've got to make sure they're doing well special teams. They would have won the game against Arizona last week if Josh Carty, he was usually money, have made one of his 2 50-yard field goal attempts, but he missed both of them. So got to make sure that the field goals are dropping for Josh Carty when they kick them. And then, also too, that doesn't just mean field goals, but I'm talking all areas of the special team. So make some plays in the return game, see if you can get a rip one on a kick return or a punt return, and then also the punting as well. So I personally think punter Adam Flintoff, freshman's been punching a little better, but make sure you're better with your punts, punting out of bounds, not just like lobbing up, wounded ducks, no pun intended, to the return guys where they can just like, lob it in and return it deep. So, just really kind of all aspects of special teams. If you're going to win a game like this, all areas got to be clicking. And that's why I included the special teams there.
All right. Ben has got take some shots, contain Bo Nix, good special teams play from the Cardinal, and they could possibly get it done from the Ducks. Let's see what I got. Okay, I got my 3 keys of the game for Stanford Week 5 here. Number 1, I got start fast, okay? There's going to be memories looming, even in this Oregon and Stanford players on the field. There's going to be memories looming of, hey, the Stanford team beat the Ducks when they were good just a couple years ago. We could probably do it again. If you don't start fast, you don't put that confidence away quick, it can get sketchy out there in the farm. Number 2, no more than 3 penalties. Okay, so penalties have been one of a big negative of this Duck team. The Ducks have done a lot of things right this season so far. They're sitting there undefeated, but one thing that almost cost them the game at Week 2 at Texas Tech was penalties. They've been one of the most penalized teams in the country. Dan Lanning's going on the road. This is his 2nd road game. After this, we have to go to Washington after the bye week. You cannot commit double-digit penalties every game and expect to win and go undefeated or even win your conference. You can't do that against Washington. You can't do that against USC. I want to see this be the game where we really clean it up. I want to see it. No more than 3 penalties. If you get 3, that's fine, but no more than 3. I really want to see that get that cleaned up for the Ducks. Number 3, I got stay healthy. Okay, in this matchup, we're expected to win. You're a heavy favorite. Just stay healthy. Keep your guys on the field. No major injuries. We just kind of had one last week with Noah Whittington going down. This is kind of the time of the year where your depth is going to start getting tested here in the next couple of weeks. Just try to stay healthy as possible. Those are my 3 keys to the game for an Oregon victory. All right, let's get into prediction time. Who do you got winning this game, Ben? What's your final score prediction? What do you got?
Yeah, so I got a 42-10 victory for Oregon. I believe that's what I could. I remembered it. Okay, yeah, 42-10. That's what I got. Yeah, I just think that Oregon is, I mean, they're the vastly better team, and Stanford got absolutely crushed by USC. Then Oregon's also coming off an absolutely dominant victory over Colorado. So I think a 42-10 score is just being realistic. That's not to say that Stanford can't do things to make it closer. And I agree with you. This is a game where, I think anything can happen, but just being realistic and objective here, 42-10 Oregon feels about right to me.
Okay, so 42-10. That's what Ben's got. Oregon winning the game. I believe that would be covering the spread as well. Last time I checked, the spread was around 27.5. So there you go. There's Ben's final score prediction. Let's get into mine here. What I think is going to happen with Ducks at Stanford. This game should scare really any Duck fan if you're a Duck fan. Okay, we're riding high. We feel good as a fan base right now. And here comes Stanford, everybody, on the schedule. In 2021, we just talked about it. The Ducks went to Stanford and lost. After beating Ohio State just a few weeks prior, top 3 team in Ohio State, we go there, win on the road, first win ever against Ohio State. We go to Stanford, a team that won 3 games all year and lose. So we've seen this movie before. Right now, the Cardinals lead the all-time series over the Ducks. Will it happen again? I don't think so, guys. I'm just going to give you the final score. Sorry to build you guys up, but I got Oregon 55, Stanford 10. Much respect to the Stanford teams of the past, but this is just a totally different Stanford team. Oregon appears to be a top 10 team, maybe even a top 5 team in the country right now. We're going to see in a couple weeks if they really are or not. The Ducks have one of the most experienced quarterbacks at the P5 level in Bo Nix. Going against a very young and inexperienced group in the Stanford defense. I think that this Ducks, defense might even be night and day better than they were last year. Even through 4 games, I'm confident at this point to say that. I honestly think that it's going to be really tough for Ashton Daniels and the Stanford offense to get anything going against this Duck defense. I think the Ducks will smother that Stanford offense. And it's sad to say, but this might even be the last matchup in a long time between Stanford and Oregon, with the Ducks and Cardinal both headed off to their respective conferences. Great matchups that will last forever in my heart as a Duck fan between the Ducks and the Cardinals. But I got 55-10 Oregon winning there. Okay, let's get into our next segment, guys. So just to recap things, Ben's got 42-10. I got 55-10 on our 3 keys to the game real quick. Ben, you got good special teams play, contain Bo Nix, and take some shots for the Cardinal. For me, for the Ducks, I got start fast. Let's take that confidence away. Number 2, no more than 3 penalties. Let's fix the penalty issue that we've been having. And number 3, stay healthy. Okay, time for the next segment. We're going to do this real quick. It's a quick pick 'em. Predict the games around the conference. Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? Let's start with the Friday matchup. This is a big-time matchup. Number 10, Utah at number 19, Oregon State. Oregon State just lost to Washington State on the road in a close one. Well, it was close towards the end. Utah, top 10 in the country. They've looked iffy. They're on the road here at Oregon State. Who do you got?
Give me the Utes. They're playing. I still think they're a legit team. Also, my parents went to Utah, so there you go.
The Ute faithful is strong. Utah looking pretty good. I also will take the Utes here. I think their defense is really good. They look to be good again under Kyle Whittingham. Oregon State, DJ Uiagalelei looks to kind of be that quarterback that I thought he was. He doesn't really look to be taking a next step. And I just think that Utah defense travels in games. I think Utah will get it done. I think it will be close. I think Oregon State's a talented team, but I just think that Utah will get it done there. Let's move on here. We got USC, number 8 in the country, at Colorado, who the Ducks just put it on. This is early in the morning. Colorado's looking to bounce back after the butt whooping they just took from the Ducks. USC, this is kind of their first real test against a semi-legit team. We'll see how Colorado finishes their year, but I'm going to go ahead and take USC on the road here. Just Colorado, if they would have kept it close with the Ducks and been somewhat respectable in my eyes, I would give them somewhat of a chance here, but USC kind of struggled too. They struggled against Arizona State last game, but I just think they have too much talent to overcome. Give me USC. I think it'll be closer than people expect, but I think USC will pull it out on the road. Who do you got?
Yeah, same as you. I got USC. Yeah, I agree. Colorado played Oregon tougher. Had they played them tough at all, I might, say, okay, maybe they, but just the way they got rolled, I got USC giving them another dose of reality check. I think Deion Sanders is doing a lot of good things at Colorado, obviously, but I think people are kind of overhyping their team a little bit. When people are like, oh, do you believe now after they beat Colorado State in overtime at home? I'm like, I don't know about, let's kind of pump the brakes. So, yeah, I got USC winning. I don't know what the score will be, but I think USC wins by at least 3 touchdowns. So.
Okay, USC there. Me and Ben really agreeing on these teams, this pick so far. There, let's go here. Arizona State at Cal. Arizona State just came off a loss to USC, and they kind of kept it close against USC, but USC ended up pulling away, and Cal just got blown out by Washington. That Washington team looks really good, though. Just because Cal's at home, I'll take Cal. I think I haven't really watched any of these two teams, if I'm being honest, but just because Cal's at home, I think Cal's going to win.
Yeah, you read my mind. I'm going to pick Cal on this one. I did go to Cal, so there's that too. So I'll be kind to my school alma mater and pick the Bears. I'll say this too about Cal. That's never an easy place to get a win. They always play tough at home. They're kind of one of those teams where they're pretty vulnerable away from Berkeley, but they're always a tough team to beat at home. And after the way they got rocked by Washington, I think Justin Wilcox is going to have his guys ready to play hard and physical. And so that should be a close game, but I'll give the edge to the Bears in this one.
Okay, to the Bears. We both got the Bears here, and then we already predicted number 9 Oregon at Stanford. Both got Oregon there. Here we go. Number 7 Washington at Arizona. Last game of the day here. I'm going to go Washington. They just look really unstoppable right now. Might even be a top 5 team in the country. When Oregon and Washington duke it out, we're going to see who really might be the best team in the conference now. USC, I understand that they got a lot of hype in the media and they look really good, but so far in the season, they really haven't played anybody. When they did play Arizona State, it was kind of close. So they still got a lot more to prove to me than anybody, but Washington, I'll take the win here over Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I would love to do a different prediction than you, just to make this segment a little interesting, I got to pick Washington. I mean, just all the reasons you said, they smoked Cal. They're looking good. They're arguably the best team in the conference. I mean, it's just they're playing so well right now. And also, the way that Arizona narrowly got past Stanford, I just have to pick Washington in this game. So Huskies.
Yeah, it would be tough to not pick against the Huskies. That's the thing. Last week it was a more interesting, pick 'em segment because there was a lot of good matchups. This week it kind of seems apparent who's going to win against who. So, no, nothing but a chicken wing on these picks. You know what I mean? All right, guys. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. That's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Ben Parker here with me. Do you want to go ahead and shout out your work one more time? Where can people find you? Any of your social media, stuff like that?
Yeah. So once again, cardinalsportsreport.com. Just check out the work there. And for social media, just throw me a follow at slamdunk406. That's where you can find me on Twitter. I also have a site-specific Twitter account, so you can also check out at Stanford Rivals as well. So both those will work. And yeah, feel free to check it out if you want more insight in the Cardinal.
Bam, there you guys go. Go ahead to make sure to go check out Ben Parker and his work. I really appreciate Ben for coming on because this was really the last second to give you guys some insight behind the podcast. I hit him up in the morning, the day of today where we record the podcast, and he was able to come on and make it happen. So, man, big shout out to Ben for coming on. Appreciate that. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to the podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Dominiqk Peterson. This is the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button down below. If you listen on Spotify, Rate it 5 stars for me. I really do appreciate everybody who does tune in every week. We're going Monday and Wednesday, 2 episodes a week. We got the vlogs, so make sure you're locked in here. As always, guys, I'll see you on Monday for the recap and analysis episode.